Welcome to another Lightroom Live, everybody. It's good to have you here, as always, broadcasting from my gallery and studio, or whatever this thing is here down in downtown Pacific Grove in the heart of the Monterey Peninsula. We usually try to do these on the first Tuesday of every month, but I'm a busy guy with ADHD and I got a lot going on. So we're doing this, I don't know, is this the third Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month? One of those Tuesdays. But we try and do these on the first Tuesday of every month either way. Maybe we'll do it on the first Tuesday next month. I don't know. But the 11 a.m. time, this is working for us. We're going to stick to this and we're going to send another email out real soon about when the next one is. Hopefully the first Tuesday of next month, but we'll certainly let you know very soon. And of course, who the guest is. As always, we have a handful of people lined up waiting to be a guest. So as soon as we have someone scheduled clear, we'll let you know who that guest is. And of course, as always, we are recording today's session. So if you're missing part of it, you're missing most of it, or just want to see it again, in a couple days or so, we're going to have the recording of this webinar posted at bradleyphotographic.com under blog, so you can rewatch this. Couple areas of business that I'd like to handle before I jump into our guest today and our topic at hand today. And let me go to the World Wide Web to do that. Everybody take a look here. I want to mention we are going to Kenya, to two national parks, to both the Masai Mara and to Amboseli National Park in the end of January and for the beginning of February. And we have just 2 spots left. We have a small group. We're bringing 12 people with 3 Jeeps, so 4 people per Jeep, which leaves a lot of room for people to spread out with gear and sandwiches and cocktails and whatever you want to bring along. But we're going to bring a total of 12 people, and we have 10 signed up. We got just 2 spots left. If you have interest in just simply hearing more about it, go to bradleyphotographic.com, click on events, and then you can read a little bit more about it. But just click on view event, send us an email through there, and we'll then reply with a booklet that will give you the whole itinerary, everything we're doing, where we're going, the price, and everything. And then, of course, if you have more questions, just reach out to us. But we have just 2 spots left. The next thing I want to mention to you, because I'm pretty excited about this. I don't know if I've even talked about this yet during one of the Lightroom Live events, but as I mentioned a minute ago, I'm a busy guy with ADHD or whatever it is the doctor diagnosed me with. Here on the screen is something that was recently announced, and this is a pet project of mine and has taken up a lot of my time and the team's time that I'm working with. But in short, for about 15 years or so, I was a writer, blogger. I conducted my own webinars with Outdoor Photographer magazine, which is around for well over 3 decades. And they had a cult following, and they were a well-loved magazine in the industry. And it is sad to say that several months ago, the magazine went away. I did reach out while it was disintegrating to see if there was any possibility of acquiring it. Things weren't coming together, but the good news is the staff that was working for Outdoor Photographer at the time has teamed up with me. I started a publishing company, and we've been putting a lot of work in to fill the hole that was left after Outdoor Photographer magazine left us. And that is to replace it with Wild Eye magazine. So here is an article right now. I would love for you guys to check it out. You can Google it now if you like, or we're going to send you a link with an email in a few days after today's recording has been posted on my website. But it's an article that was put out by Petapixel about a week ago, actually on July 10th, it looks like. And it talks all about Wild Eye magazine and what we are and where we came from and what we intend to do with it. And you guys, please check this out. Follow up then by going to wildeyemagazine.com and just give us your email address. And issue 1 is coming out in September, and we're just going to give it to you for free. So go check this out, and then go to wildeyemagazine.com. I'm begging you, I'm asking you, please sign up for it. We're going to give you the first issue for free. I think you're going to love it. We have some great people lined up in the first issue, names that you know, names that you don't, but they're all talented, amazing photographers. Paul Nicklin's going to be in the issue, David Duchemin, Melissa Grew, or no, Amy Gulick's going to be in the first one. Ruben Wu, Aaron Babnick, Ted Orland, who used to be Ansel Adams' assistant, wrote a wonderful article on landscape photography. So please go check this stuff out. It's wow, I'm really proud of what we're doing with Wild Eye, and think you're going to like it. So all that said, let me turn off my screen and get to the point of what we are here for today. Looks like we got a lot of people still saying hello. Michael Thornton, hello. Leonard, hello. Garnet, hello. Rich Brooks, hello. A lot of people here. Thanks, everybody. Looks like people from Florida and Minnesota and Oregon. Thank you all for being here today. We have a really special, is the right word, guest today. And I say that with a little smile on my face and a tilt of the head, because the guest that we have today is there's a lot of layers to our relationship, because Joe Platko is his name, and I've known Joe Platko for many, many years, and Joe Platko for the studio that is behind me, for the print lab that is to my right, that helps keep the lights on in this place. Joe is the backbone and heart of this operation in many ways, along, of course, with the other employee that we have who might join us in Lightroom Live one day soon, Effie Benjamin. But Joe has long been the backbone of what we do here. And in his own right, one of the most talented photographers I know, and absolutely one of the most playful, enthusiastic, and creative photographers. And I've seen him over the years grow into, I think, a very, a very talented artist. But more than that is, as I mentioned, we have a print lab here, and Joe pretty much runs the print lab. And I trust him to do so. And my standards are high because I'm such a photography nerd, that I trust him to do so, because he's so good at looking at people's work, looking at his own work, and developing it, and taking care of any of the details that need to be taken care of before that print button is hit. So and Joe is not only a talented and playful and creative photographer when he's in the field, but in the post-production phase of things, Joe uh, is one of the best. So I'm proud to have him here today. And what Joe's going to talk about is printing and how to get ready for a print. But enough of that. Let me bring Joe out here. Joe, are you there? Come on. Come on, Joe. There he is.
Hi, Jason. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Joe. Welcome. Where are you broadcasting from? Looks like a blind store.
Yep, broadcasting from my house, and thanks for the slight get to sleep in a little bit later today. So thank you for that.
Oh,
And
that's
it's
true.
needed with my car dying down, so it's a good day to work from home.
That's true. You get to, because of this, show up late to work today. Well, yeah, your car is dying. So how are you going to get here? You going to hitchhike? What's going to happen after this?
Borrow Annika's car to come in since she still has a week off before, so she said take it. So thank you, Annika, too.
Wherever you are. Thank you, Annika.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, I don't know how much you heard, but I appreciate you being here, and I'm proud to have you here. And there's definitely a lot that you have to offer in terms of how to work with Lightroom and prepping people for print, because it's unlike really anybody or most people. You have a unique position where you are working in that program every day, like it's your job, to work with people's images. And you get stuff, you know this, you get stuff that needs a lot of help, and you get stuff that needs a little bit of help. So the kind of stuff that receives kind of runs the gamut of needs. So you're in a unique position. But let me shut up for a minute and have you introduce yourself a little bit more. I want to ask you some questions so the audience can get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about who you are, your background, what kind of things that you like to photograph, and go from there. Who the heck are you?
Okay. So yeah, as Jason mentioned, I'm Joe Platko. I've been photographing now for I think like 20 years. Got into it way back when my dad got the DSLR camera, and I just took it and wanted to play around and learn all the settings, and then got into college. And the first class I signed up for was a scuba diving class, and from there just wanted to really get into underwater photography. So actually, I would say I did more underwater stuff than topside for quite a while. And then later on, though, once I got a little bit more money, was able to start, getting more telephoto lenses and wide angle lenses. And then from there, kind of blossomed a bit more, I guess. And then during that time, it was also when I met you. And you originally told me, like, okay, most people at the time had been, nice in their critiques and just like, oh, I love the colors. And I remember, probably of telling me, yeah, okay, you first person to truly give me some critique and say like, yeah, this is doing okay, but you really need work here, 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 especially on a lot of times simplifying the scenes, as I'm sure you remember. So thank you for all that, for then helping me kind of continue on with my visions to slowly kind of, I don't know, whittle stuff away and try to keep some elements of, similar to kind of like you do, especially with your ambient photography with a lot of underwater, showing a lot of atmosphere in the scenes. But then at the same time, trying to make sure that it wasn't, say, exactly like your stuff, to still kind of keep some of my own elements in there as well. And I think that's kind of helped me now that I'm working with you with the printing, doing more so the editing, is to use that same idea for helping others, where I can kind of take their overall elements of what they might have edited, but then find ways to improve upon that.
Yeah, got it. Well, so now help me refresh my memory. How long ago was that I critiqued your photos differently than other people? How long have we known each other?
That was, I believe that was 2011, because that was the year I was graduating. It was either 2010 or 2011. So over 10 years ago now.
Okay. So Cecilia was born at that time.
Yep. Oh yeah, but yeah, she was quite young.
Okay, got it. So for those who don't know, Cecilia is my daughter, so that's kind of, I'm throwing it out there as a marker for time frame for my brain. Got it. Yeah, well, and so let me say, kind of elaborate on what I said before, and that Joe's been with me for a long time. But yeah, Joe essentially has been with me, I think, for much of his, as he said, he's been shooting for 20 years, but heck, more than half of that, Joe's been working with me, and I'm grateful for Joe, not for just what he does here today, but for many years leading up to the opening of this gallery photo center lab that we have here. Joe worked for me for free, and just because he liked the stuff that we were doing together. And so when I mean Joe's been the heart and the backbone of what we do here, I certainly couldn't have built this without a lot of his free help back in the day. So thanks for everything. I'll say that in a public forum here, because it's been invaluable to me and to what we've grown here and what are continuing to grow. So cool. So let's jump into things. Let's talk about printing. Tell us a little bit about what do I want to ask here to you? I mean, maybe what we should do is just kind of jump into sharing your screen, because what I what I thought would be a great thing for Joe to do today would just to be to talk about, since he is in a unique position and is able to not just develop and work with his work, but work with all of the work that's submitted to us from our clients, that he spends a lot of time working on images in preparation for print. So if any of you out there in the audience, want to make your prints better, want to make your prints as good as they can be, whether you're sending them to a lab, hopefully it's our lab, hint, hint, wink, wink. I'll give you a discount if you do, or printing stuff at home. There are some crucially important things that need to be done to any image, to any print, to ensure that it looks its best. So now that I've put a lot of pressure on you and set the stage, Joe, let's share your screen and see what kind of images that you brought up and what kind of tips and tricks you kind of have for us here.
Sure thing. Hold on one sec. Let me share.
Because I don't know.
Alrighty. So just make sure you can see it okay, yeah?
Yep, we can see everything.
All right. So I thought one of the first things just to start off with, which is a very simple thing to that I do, but I sometimes have to do a lot of, especially with underwater work. It's just going through, as you might be able to see here, is, for instance, having a dirty sensor. So we're starting out easy, is just for people that haven't used it, if you're going into the clone tool or the healing brush, visualizing spots is amazing for being able, like I do this all the time, especially if we're doing, larger 24 by 36 or 40 by 60 is the amount of times, you print something and then you don't see a dust spot and then you have to end up redoing it all over again. So um, this allows me to more easily see anytime there is a dust spot. So I can just quickly grab, grab, grab. And then as I turn off the visualize tool, make sure that it's not creating anything weird or taking from somewhere I don't want. And I know, Jason, like you this is a thing where, especially if you're coming back from a safari, I mean, amount of sensor spots sometimes you can get, and especially with the mirrorless cameras nowadays, is they collect dust like no other. So definitely just thought this would be an easy thing to initially talk about, just as a uh, quick discussion. But then from there, with the newer Lightroom, now there's a way. Let me show you the before on this one. I mean, it used to be getting rid of, if you wanted to. I'm not saying I really wanted to, but just as a showing of what the new AI can do for getting rid of stuff in a scene. It's pretty phenomenal. Have you been using it a bunch, Jason? Or are you
I've been using it some. I don't know about a bunch yet, but I have been using it some, and it's very impressive.
yeah, I think, I mean, compared to, initially you'd have to go in through Photoshop and do content aware fill, and then that was just kind of a pain, because you'd be editing and then hop over, hop back again. I mean, so for this, let me just even go back to the import so you can see in real time. So again, if I was using the healing brush, remove, let me just say, I mean, I think I just went pretty crazy over all of these.
Now, did you mention what tool you're using? I didn't hear that.
This was the, we get
That
off
looks great.
this. Yep. So I'm going into, it's generating right now. So the,
Well, it tells you right there. So
yep, here.
for those of you not in the know, um, this AI tech stuff is becoming more and more ubiquitous in all areas of our lives. And of course, in this zone of our lives in the world of photography and in Lightroom. And the AI masking features were announced, I think, a year and a half ago or some point, not too long ago. And little things are added more and more and more. And Lightroom just announced not too long ago the generative remove feature, which is amazing that we have the capability to do AI generative remove stuff in a raw environment. But as Joe's showing, we can do that. So you keep going.
Oh, so, and then to me, I'm kind of blown away that as it's showing, this is just an early access. So like this isn't even a full feature yet, but I mean, and not that it's perfect. Obviously, you can still see that there's it's kind of creating some extra weird things in there. But I mean, I think as you remember, it used to be if I was cloning something that large, and this is a full size image. I mean, you wouldn't have an area within this entire frame that you could actually even use as a spot to try to TV, really? TV? Sorry, cat is deciding to be an issue right now. But yeah,
Well,
so
and let me chime in if I can, Joe. And one of the cool things about the generative tool is like Joe just illustrated there, it's pretty easy to just kind of create a mask over it and it kind of disappears quickly. Sometimes it does a perfect job right away, and sometimes it might leave a couple of artifacts as it's doing now. We have three little splotches there. Maybe that's acceptable, maybe it's not. But if you want to do any, you can always go over it again and go over it again with the same tool until they go away. So Joe, I bet if you tried doing a generative fill over one of those again,
oh yeah, this, I mean, I was playing with this earlier, so if I just do that.
then they just disappear. So the spot removal tool has evolved. It's not just there to remove spots at this point, but to remove, you know, whole entities. And it works amazingly well because of, the way machine learning tech these days works. Now, I want to take a little bit of an ethical stance since we're talking about this stuff. I have to jump into that a little bit, especially since I'm officially a publisher of a magazine now. Um, there's two things I'll say on this. And well, let me just jump in. There's two things I'll say in this. In terms of the AI tech that's being introduced and how easy it makes photos, there's a double-edged sword to it. I love it for the most part. I love being able to look at a photograph, a raw image, and see the things that I want to do to it, dodging, burning, handle a detail in this corner of the image, play with a tone in another corner of the image. And with the masking AI tools that are available now, achieve that goal in a much faster, more efficient way than I've ever been able to do before. Underneath the tech, what I'm doing in terms of dodging and burning and redirecting viewers' attention to one area of the image or the other is artistically speaking, creative expression wise, not any different than even the days when Ansel was in his darkroom dodging and burning to redirect tonality to the subject of the photograph, back then. So that's not any different. But what is different is the level of efficiency that we're able to do it today. But when we're dealing with areas like this, when we're generative remove in this case, or in places like Photoshop where we don't just generatively remove things, but fill things, we're getting into another realm of creative expression, where we are, for lack of a better word, manipulating an image. And if we do that kind of stuff and present it as an authentic photograph, then we are going to be entering the realm of deception. And that's where this stuff starts to become ethically questionable. So in terms of the technology itself, I'm all for it. I think it's great. It makes me more efficient at expressing myself creatively. We just need to be careful that when this stuff is being used in a way that's changing specific elements of a photograph, that we're honest about it. Otherwise, that aura of looking at things and being deceptive, having it being deceptive, that becomes a problem. Which is why over
Mhm.
the years the term Photoshop as became as much of a verb as it was a noun. Photoshop is now a word that's synonymous with manipulation and deception. That looks like it's been photoshopped. That looks like it's been photoshopped in which also means that the essential elements of that image have been changed and manipulated. So anyway, I just thought I'd jump in. Excuse me, Joe, for
Oh, no,
going
no.
on a bit of a rant on that. But as this AI stuff evolves and as it's being introduced more and more, I think it's important to start talking about what's good about it and what's bad about it and what we need to be honest about with it, et cetera. But it is a really effective tool for removing things in a way that's much more efficient than we've ever been done before, as Joe is showing you
Not
here.
even.
Sorry, keep going.
Oh, and I was just gonna say, and I think it's also, I mean, beneficial with us being a print lab. I mean, we have a lot of people that'll come in, with a photo of kids or something, and there might be someone kind of, in the background, but it might be kind of partially in the way in the background. So it's, whereas before I'd have to, charge them sometimes an hour of really going in and photoshopping. I mean, now it's within 5, 10 minutes, which is phenomenal. So I think there is a lot of, yeah, nice things for it. And that's, I guess, nice for me is that I guess I don't have to worry as much ethically in a sense about, whereas like I'm going specifically for a print at the end of the day, that you're typically going to want to hang up. So it's more of a fine art look, that it's not so much something that you're having to send in for a workshop or for a competition or anything like that. So yeah, I personally love it, but yeah, I can understand both sides of that argument. So, but so finished doing all this stuff. So now here's just a before. I mean, yes, I can go in a little bit. You can see maybe some small areas, but I think it did with, what, 3 minutes of work, a heck of a good job of even matching the blur in the background. So yeah,
So
it's just,
so go back to the dust spots again
uh-huh.
if you can, because the thing that you showed there of the um what is
The
it?
visualize spots or the
Yeah, I found that most people don't know, never even seen that thing before. So go over that again and what that can do for people, because sometimes these spots that show up on prints are subtle. And it's annoying for Joe and me who work in a print lab, because even for us, sometimes these spots come in where the person submitting the image didn't see them, and even we, when we zoom in, and we have pretty careful ways of going through stuff, miss it until we print it. And when we print it, especially with the big prints, we look at it and go, oh my God, we missed it. And then we got to print it again. So this tool here is a great tool for finding those dust spots on your sensor that are really hard to see, that you don't see on a screen, but you would see when you go to print. So you can check the box, or you can hit the A key as a quick command to get into this mode. And then Joe, one more thing,
Yep.
hit the T key on your keyboard. So um, why is that not showing up? Your threshold slider is not showing up.
Oh, I don't know if it's behind.
Oh, they moved it.
Yeah, it's over here now. It's not on the bottom
Okay.
anymore. Sorry about that.
No, it's my fault. I forgot. They Lightroom moves things around, so it's usually that slider next to visualize spots on the panel on the right used to be on the toolbar on the bottom. So my apologies. Keep going, Joe.
Oh, so yeah, I was just going to mention is what you're saying of not being able to see it. So if I zoom in, say up in here, I mean, I'm looking at, let me get out of it really quick. I mean, some of these are pretty faint, like this one I'm at right here, this one, some of these. So why I love visualize spots is that for these faint ones, I mean, as Jason was just mentioning with the cursor, I mean, if you have a lot of texture in the files, you can really turn down the overall opacity, but it will really make these faint ones start standing out, especially as you go up and up and up. So any little tiny thing, and it is weird that sometimes I found if there is just a lot of texture, you will get like false positives at the same time. So then it's just nice to quickly be able to, turn off and on and see like, is it really something worth spotting, or is it an accidental thing where it is thinking there's something there that there's not? But oh yeah, this one definitely had an issue. So um, I mean, if I was trying to find these all without the spot tool, it would probably take me quite a while. But if I turn it down, bring the opacity down a little bit, just find some of these larger ones, and I could really go in and boop, boop, 1, 2, 3. And I think it also, as I was mentioning with underwater, I mean, if you have backscatter, it's the same thing. It works really well for just quickly kind of finding clumps of backscatter and erasing those as well. I don't want to see all my mistakes though. Can we go on to the next one, Jason?
Yeah, no, go for it.
So aside from healing, the next thing I wanted to go over, which if people are printing at home, um, or if you're trying to figure out, between different papers, how your colors might be affected. So this is, I have two different shots that are the exact same shot. And as you'll see, they're slightly different. And that's because I hit the S key and then was editing it. So I'm basically doing a soft proof um, of an ICC profile of, if I wanted to say in this sense, was using a photo rag Barita. And then if I did the other paper, I had actually edited it a bit differently to have it then print on bamboo. So if you see this change, you can change your profile. And so this is from me going online on Safari, going on to any of the paper manufacturers and downloading the ICC profiles from their website, and then saving it under library on my computer, in the color sync folder. And then if I was to go into print, what I can do is, let me actually move this really a bit. So if in color management, you can go into profile and other, and you can then find any profiles that you had downloaded, bring them into Lightroom. So then you can basically do a soft proof to see how that shot would look as it's being converted over, so you can um, test the gamut of a print. And Jason, I know you probably actually would say no, or better understanding of all that is involved in knowing gamuts and stuff from your when you wrote your Lightroom book. So
Right.
you want to just describe that a little bit more in detail of what's what we're talking about.
Sure. Happy to. Well, long story short is, and if any of you are interested, I have a 4-part article series on this that I can send everybody on printing workflow. But long story short is that if you want to gain consistency in what from what you see on your screen to what you see on the paper. In fact, let me back up a second. If you go to bradleyphotographic.com and then click on blog and look at a previous Lightroom webinar between Eric Joseph and myself, you'll see an exhaustive 2-hour webinar where Eric and I are talking about all of the techniques into creating consistency. But I digress. Um, you need to practice IC color management. And ICC color management is really all it means is you start making sure your monitor is calibrated, which characterizes your specific device and has the colors on your screen adhering to a standard that's been set by a standards organization called the ICC. Step one. And step two is you make sure that you're using profiles when you're printing. So if I'm printing on a Hahnemühle Baryta paper, I want to make sure that I'm using a profile that is that is used for that specific paper and for that specific printer that I'm using, and then you'll start to see some consistency from what you see on the screen to what you see on the paper. And the soft proofing phase that Joe is going over here is a way to check colors to make sure that they are falling within the realm of what's printable. Okay. And if it's falling outside of that realm, after the method that Joe is showing you of how to check that, then there's a couple tricks on how to bring those colors back into what's printable. The term gamut is used there, things that are in gamut versus out of gamut. So if it's
So actually, and
Go
sorry,
ahead.
just to really quickly, I think this one actually might have initially, well, one of them was out of gamut initially. So I can try to see if I can find which one that was. So sorry, continue on. Sorry.
I think that's pretty much it. So Joe's going to show you how to check to see whether or not something is in or out of gamut. And if it's out of gamut, then there's a couple of tricks to doing that. You can play with the hue or you can play with the saturation to bring it in gamut. However, let me say this. Nowadays, the print drivers, certainly if you're using an Epson printer, are so good that if you do not do this, um, 60, 70% of the
There we
time,
go.
Joe's showing you how to do this. Keep watching as I talk here.
Yeah, so there's
60 to 70% of the time, I'm pulling that number kind of out of my backside, but 60 to 70% of the time, those colors that are out of gamut going to print, the driver will interpolate those and create something that looks good, that looks acceptable. Um, Prior to this evolution in technology, you would print things that are out of gamut, and the print driver would interpolate these things and create all kinds of wonky interpretations on it. But nonetheless, this is how you can bring things into gamut so much so that when you're looking at them on the screen, you'll get consistency, and the print driver is not interpolating, which is a fancy word for saying make it up. So the print driver is not making up where that color shift is happening by way of shifting a hue or desaturating a tone. If you want to maintain control, do what Joe is doing. Okay. Especially if you're printing at home. If you're printing through a lab, especially somebody like me, wink, wink, me and Joe, wink, wink, we know what we're doing. We look at something on a screen right away and we can tell without even hitting the print button if something is going to fall in or out of gamut. Probably don't need to worry about it as much. You don't need to worry about soft proofing as much. You don't need to worry about going through this. But if you're printing at home, this is a crucially important step. Keep going.
Oh, so yeah, so here I was editing this image just to actually get it out of gamut initially. But if I was to show it normally not in soft proofing mode, it's showing okay, nothing's clipped at all. And you can see it's kind of, but the colors bunched up, but on the histogram it's saying it's okay. But then if I go in the soft proof, and showing it as a bamboo, then all of a sudden, oh, all this yellow is out. So then I would want to, at that point, then, bring the saturation typically back down, probably bring the contrast up back down. And now, great, it's back in, it'll print okay. And then comparatively with it out, you'll notice also since I'm showing a bamboo, that is a matte paper, and there is quite a bit of a difference oftentimes with the matte papers of how the contrast really fades away and it gets a bit softer. So if I compare then bamboo versus the Photorag Baryta, which has more of a gloss to it, that does keep a bunch more of the punch. And so I think that's also a fun way for, I know oftentimes a lot of people ask me like, well, what type of paper do you think this would work at? I think this is a fun way to kind of get an idea of how your photos might look separately on, one paper versus the other paper. Um, and to kind of compare that, say, with the next image would be, so something like this, where it's get out of soft proofing. This like soft image of
That's a pretty image. What is that?
that's Upper Yosemite Falls. Just zoomed in. I think I was shooting a 600 millimeter. And this is where I also would say, as you were talking about, of having consistency, is in terms of figuring out, like, I might even change how I edit this based on, what type of paper I'm going to be putting it on. If I was going to be putting this on a glossier paper, something that has, a bit more punch and contrast to it, then yeah, I can further, really try to get some of this detail in here to really stand out, versus if I wanted on a matte paper, it might be these like softer midtones, and then I would actually change, bring up the black so it's not as punchy, say on like the very bottom, and then it kind of shows off more so like the mist of the draping water coming down. So I think that's something to think about, is not just thinking for print like as the end result, but even before that of like, okay, kind of have the idea of what your end result might want to be, and then go back from that and then edit it accordingly to like, oh, well, how is this medium going to take this image versus this medium? Um, Not just in terms of tones, but even also in terms of grain or noise or sharpness. I know sometimes we would get people to send us, some really grainy shots, but they don't actually, want that. So it's like, well, what can you do to kind of help with that? And even this one I know is, there's, if I was to bring it up a bit more, you would start seeing a bit of grain on this because this was an earlier morning shot. So if I wanted to hide that, then it's okay, well, let's think of, something with a bit more texture, and then that texture within the paper would kind of help that, either something like William Turner's, high texture as a rag paper, or maybe slightly less than that would be like a bamboo paper. Um, kind of
Well,
hides and
that's a really good point, Joe. So yeah, because what I do, and I don't know if you do this too, but regardless of the paper, I just feel like when I have a raw file and I develop it in color versus black and white, my approach is very different to how I'm developing the file. But you're saying it in such a way that and or taking it to another level on that when you're using a matte paper versus a glossy or even semi-gloss paper, um, those there's should be some different techniques in developing that image still.
yes, yep, I yeah, agree completely. It's exactly what I'm saying. Because I feel then too, it actually will kind of make it easier in the long run of then if you're trying to then get consistency, say you're doing a whole series of images, or wanting to do multiple prints to put up in your house, then you have that same kind of look and feel among all those different prints. Or if you're switching and having, some color and some in black and white, like you can kind of have it'll look more cohesive, having similarities to the feel of it at the same time as well.
Cool. Let me can I have a moment to elaborate on that for a
Of
minute?
course. Yeah.
So one of the reasons I want to, because I just said first a second ago how I approach a black and white development is different from a color development. Let me elaborate on that a little bit. In that color images are often to me about, well, about color. There, if color is in it, color is just inherently an element in that photograph, and I'm developing for that. Be it whether my approach to it is to show those colors um, and vibrantly, have them be saturated or have them be muted. If those colors contrast each other, to emphasize that contrast, because that's part of the narrative of the photograph. However, if I take that same image and I convert it to black and white and color is removed, then typically what I'm left with are, well, typical elements of a black and white photograph, which is texture and contrast or patterns or things like that. So instead of developing for the subtleties, vibrancies, or contrasts of color, I completely shift my approach and will develop for textures, patterns, shapes, um, and things like that. Contrast, which means using those tools very differently. So yeah. So how I approach one versus the other makes a big difference. And then if, as Joe's saying here, I'm glad he said this, is because it's a really important point. When we're printing on a matte paper versus a glossy paper, we're actually working with two different kinds of black inks on a printer. There is a photo black ink and a matte black ink on fine art printers, and they look very different. Not the paper just looks very different, but the blacks feel and have a depth to them that are very different. So if you were to take an image that's a high contrast image and develop it for a glossy paper, which inherently has a feeling of richer, deeper blacks, and then take that image and automatically print it on a matte paper, sure, you'll see the same kind of brightness values and consistency and this and that if you're following ICC color management, as if I just um, admitted a minute ago. But if you want to still get a little bit more out of it, soft proofing, as Joe's talking about, simulating a paper, as Joe's talking about here, and then playing with that contrast of blacks a little bit more for a specific paper might help coax out a little bit more of that feeling that you want for your image as you go. So really
And
good point.
and funny that you just mentioned that. That actually is one of my. I'll switch over to this one. Is
Before you
exactly what.
before you do,
Oh,
Joe, I'm getting some questions in, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
want
of
to keep up
course.
with everybody here. I want to start with Michael Thornton here. Michael, you want to answer this question live? Well, let me jump in and ask it for you. Joe, he says, if you were going to send an image for a large print, example, 30 by 40,
Mhm.
will we need to enlarge our on-screen view beyond fit to screen when we are visualizing spots? Your advice.
Um, I mean, typically, if I'm doing anything really large, I will do 200%. At times, really just to nitpick and make sure, because as Jason, I know as you as I'm will attest, just the feeling of you always end up finding invariably like one or two spots sometimes if you're doing big prints that no matter how close you look, sometimes there's just like, might be you sometimes then get too focused on the details and then you have to redo it again. But so I really will try to catch myself. I mean, there might even times where I like go 100%, then 200%, then back to wide again, or back to even 50% just to see if there's anything I'm missing, where sometimes if by just looking in that, you just tap into to miss one. So I kind of will do a accordion style where it's in, out, make sure that that nothing is needing to be redone. Um, so
Yeah, yeah,
so
I agree 1000%, especially with the zooming in. I mean, we've all been told, maybe we've all been told, I don't know, but if you haven't, then I'll tell you now. When you're handling details, you got to zoom into the image to just make sure that they look the way you want it, and doing a one-to-one view is absolutely the way to go. But as Joe's pointing out, to there, that doesn't mean you're not going to miss something. So Joe knows you sometimes, especially if he's printing something large, zoom in 200%, 300%, 400%. And not to jump the gun in case Joe has some examples on this, but if I'm doing things like removing chromatic aberration from an image, which will show up on a medium to large size print, you got to zoom in sometimes 800% and then go to the corners of an image and see if you're seeing halos on the edges of things. So zoom in, zoom in, zoom in some more, especially, and then the bigger you know you're going, the more you need to play with zooming in and analyzing those details as you go. So Joe's dead on with that point there. So
And
thanks for the
yeah,
question. Sorry,
uh,
go ahead.
oh, and I was saying a couple other things. I mean, for one is I know depending, I kind of have a way that I will go about even looking too, where I'll typically start like upper left and then slowly, go across. So I'm trying to, and I will do this the entire way until I get to the, bottom right, just so I try to make sure that and actually even try to have overlap as I'm going through. But then the one other issue I've noticed too is, I mean, if you're using like a TIFF or some very, very, very large file, and especially as you start doing a lot of spot removals, to also just allow the the system to fully render, because there are times that as you're scrolling along, I know there are times where with if you have hundreds of spots, it kind of starts putting a lot of strain on the CPU. It might not even fully render in time that you see like, oh, I don't see any spots, and you scroll by it, and all of a sudden it's just because it hadn't rendered yet. So it definitely can take a while to really just let it, take your time, let it fully render out, then continue on. And it's annoying, but it you kind of have to do that.
And if it's really annoying, maybe you should buy more RAM.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Joe. I'm going to do a few more questions here because they're
Okay.
coming in. We want to, Oliver, quick thing from you. Oliver is saying, yes, please send a series on printing workflow. Oliver, thanks for that. I'll try and remember to have Effie send that in the email that's sent out along with the link of the video once it's posted on the blog. So things to remember. I have to send the article series. I already forgot what the other one was. Something else was in there. I'll remember it. Thanks, Oliver. We'll certainly get to that. Next question is from Garnet. How to prep for print using only Lightroom Classic, not Photoshop. That's basically what we're doing here, Garnet. Is everything is being done in Lightroom Classic here. If there's a specific thing you want to know about how to prep for it, please chime back in the Q&A and let us know. But that's what we're doing here. Is doing everything in Lightroom Classic. Kevin Lohman's chiming in with a really good point to everybody. Not so much a question, but he just wanted to say as a reminder to folks to view a list, because we were talking before about visualize spots, and the quick command key for clicking that in or getting that on was to hit the A key, which probably is what triggered Kevin's suggestion here, which is a really good one. As a reminder to folks, he says to view a list of all Lightroom keyboard shortcuts available within a module, use Command and backslash keys on a Mac within the module, and a box will pop up with the shortcuts. So that's a quick way to get a list of all the shortcuts. And since Kevin's mentioning that, I want to mention something else here, which is what I usually do. If I go up to a menu, actually, Joe, go up to one of the Lightroom menus there, be like File or Edit. So just
Okay.
hover over Edit.
Sorry, I wanted to move that, but
Yeah, click on that. So as you can see, so if I want to just go down to export. If I want to export something, all of the quick commands are shown. Well, you didn't have to click it.
oh, so
Just hover over it. Go back and hover over it. So as you
oh,
can
there we go.
see, next to every command that you want here, the quick command is just kind of given to you. And that's ubiquitous, not just in Lightroom, throughout all kinds of other programs. So if you want to learn the quick commands for Photoshop, just look at the menus and the quick commands are next to them, or a Word document or a Pages document, the quick commands are given. But beyond that, if you go ahead and now hover down toward the bottom of your screen on the toolbar, Joe, and hover over Y or R and A, over one of those icons there, just hover over it. A box is going to pop up, and look, quick command again. So as Kevin says, you can bring up that box and you can memorize that list, or you can look up something quickly or reference. But if you want to learn individual ones, because I want to know reference view and I want to remember that. Well, there's your quick command, and Shift plus R. So there's a few ways to skin that cat. So thanks for that tip, Kevin. Very, very important. Couple more here, Joe, and then we'll jump back in here. Dan Gee asks, I recently used Color Checker Display Pro to calibrate my Apple laptop. Afterwards, everything I send to the print shop is about 2 stops dark. Any tip for me to diagnose the problem, such as clicking auto ambient correction and error? Absolutely, there's a tip for this, Dan. And usually what we find with uncalibrated systems is not color inconsistency, although that does show up, but it usually is an issue with brightness and contrast, luminosity. So one of the things that absolutely positively needs to happen to make sure that you're getting a good calibration is to set the brightness to a particular level. If you're using a function, I don't know how the software and uh, color checker display pro works off the top of my head, but there should be a feature there where it's asking you to set the brightness value of your display. I recommend you are somewhere between 90 and 100 candelas per square meter. Very important. Some displays don't even go that low nowadays. Ideally, you want to be at the 80 to 90, but displays just don't really do that these days. So if you're around the 90 to 100, yeah, 110 if your display can't go any lower, candelas per square meter, that's where you want to be. Now, if you're not used to that and you're creating a calibration that does that, right away, the first thing you're going to think is my monitor is dark. It looks weird. It doesn't look right. I get it. Just you'll get used to it, be patient with it, but that's where you need to be for a good calibration. So again, 90 to 100 candelas per square meter. This stuff will be in that how to print PDF that we're going to try and remember to send your way. So thanks for that question there, Dan. And just a couple more here. Um, Dan Gee, I see a note from you with nothing under it. If you want to resend that, please go for it. Jeff Sweet asks, how do we keep track of the final version of the file that you printed so you don't lose track of the final image with edits you applied prior to printing? Jeff, I don't know if you caught this, but Joe did show that is that when you start proofing an image, there's two ways to go about this, Jeff. Joe showed that when you start soft proofing an image, Lightroom will automatically ask you if you want to what are the words that it uses, Joe? If you want to make this a proof, which
Yep.
creates a virtual file, a virtual copy, I should say, or you can use that source file as the proofed image. Okay.
Here, let me see if I can also go in, proof it, and then start editing. Will it allow me to? No, no,
If
it's
it
not.
prompts that, you might have to use a different image to prompt it there, Joe,
Yeah, let's
because you
try this one.
already told that one. So bottom line is, if you do that,
There we
there
go.
it goes. You can create a proof copy, or you can make this a proof, or even undo it if you like. Oh, this is going too far. Oh, you just undo it real quick. So that's one
Mhm.
way. If you're soft proofing. However, if you are, as I mentioned before, we can develop a black and white image differently than a color image, or we can develop a black and white image for glossy paper versus matte paper. In those cases, if you want to save those versions, Joe, point out the snapshots.
Yeah, I was about to. So, so let's say this is matte finish copy.
Bingo. Create another one that says glossy.
We bring the whites up more, bring this down, and then
So Jeff, to answer your question, is you can save different versions of your image: matte paper, glossy paper, color version, black and white version, warm tone version, cool tone version. The list goes on. You can save those different versions as snapshots on the left-hand panel there. So thanks for the question.
and
Have
oh, sorry, just really quick, I'd say I actually also use that quite a bit too when comparing, say if a client has, an initial edit and then I want to do an edit. First thing I will do is save a snapshot as this was the original edit. Then I can go in and then it's easy to also then compare the two side by side and see before and after.
got it, got it. Keep going, Joe. We got a bunch more questions. I'll answer them some here. I'll come back with some more, but keep going.
Yeah. So sorry. So to get back to what you were talking about, or what you had mentioned a while ago about the blacks. It's actually why I had specifically thrown this one in to show that. So this is, I mean, this was shot in Yosemite, and I really wanted to make sure that it was like a black background. So make sure there's nothing showing. And the reason for that was if we were, say, printing this on a matte paper, I mean, if I show the shadows not all the way down, it can be, up like that. Let's bring this up a little bit. Still looks quite dark, but now all of a sudden it's there's actually only like it would be only a tiny bit of clipping. Well, if we were to print that, I'm just gonna bring up the exposure so you can see what is really in the background. It actually has a ton of detail in the background. And printing on a matte paper, since the blacks kind of, as you were saying, don't wash out as much. You would actually start seeing some of that in the print if you're not getting the clipping with the matte blacks. Whereas I wouldn't worry about that as much with the photo black, knowing that you're getting more of that contrast. It's a bit punchier in the black. So that was just one thing, which is funny enough that you started talking about, that I wanted to show off as an idea, because I know a lot of people will send us stuff that has a straight black background, but then oftentimes if we then go to print it with the matte papers, you might actually see stuff, weird background like lines or slight shadow areas that would otherwise look pure black, but they aren't showing up that way. And then funny enough, then the same thing I felt like too was for whites, where I know, you like shooting high key a lot.
Yep.
And that's the same thing of, you might have, I think originally when I did this edit, if I just show, so this was like before as the import camera. But if I go up here, that white, even though like to me, like that looks white, that would not print white. It would actually print very, 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 very light gray. Um, which then gets weird, especially if you're trying to print between different papers and you're wanting to show off, um, just the texture of the paper, not have ink on the paper at all. So then that's why eventually I ended up going and actually making, go back up to the top. But another nice feature with this was, if you're trying to shoot high key, you can straight up now just do click, um, select background, which is what I did. And now it's coming up automatically, then boost the whites up all the way, just so you get that pure white, showing off the paper. Do you, Jason, I'm actually curious, when you edit, do you primarily go in and edit backgrounds, or do you just do like full bring exposure up and then bring your shadows down? Um,
It depends on the shot, but usually I just bring the whole thing up.
mhm,
I get the subject looking to where I want to look, where I want it to look, and then I'll handle the background um, as a secondary thing, because doing it that way will kind of take care of a lot of the problem of the background. So instead of doing the whole background, then I'm left with only doing pieces of it. So it just makes
mhm,
my job a little bit easier, and it's a more efficient approach, I think.
gotcha.
Yeah.
I guess the reason why I don't is, for me it was, I would oftentimes then get issues within the highlights within, say, like, this bottom area where it is, oftentimes that would start blowing out. But I know you also, I would say, I feel like do less color high key and do more, pure black and white, which looks nice. Like, actually, speaking of which, all the ones right behind you there.
Yeah, I'm just exactly. I'm just kind of black and white dude these days, in spite of the animal stuff, which is all in color behind me. Um, but yeah, yeah, exactly. So I have are you finished that point, or can I jump in with another question,
Oh,
Joe?
yeah, yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead and ask away.
All right. So go back if you can to the Yosemite Falls image, because the question coming in
Uh-huh.
from Charles, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, Versagi, excuse me, but Charles, was about black and white. And Charles suggested might be a good time to discuss advanced black and white mode for Epson printers. And it's a good point, because to get a true black and white image, if you're using IC color management, color workflow, like I just mentioned there, that kind of doesn't apply, because I see color management is for color photos. So if you're working with black and white stuff, adhering to that doesn't matter as much. So what we do instead, as an alternative to that, instead of using a color profile, is we don't use profiles at all. In fact, what we do is we go to the driver and we go, are you about to show it, Joe?
Yep.
If it's possible there.
Manage my
So
printer.
you turn that off, as Joe's showing there. You manage it by the printer instead of by way of profile. And then we go into, it's if you this is
Oh,
only going to work if you have the driver installed.
dang, I don't have a printer. Yeah, so
So you're not going to see that. So what would have happened as he hits print and he goes into the settings, if your print driver is installed, is there's an option there to then go into advanced black and white mode. And then all that does is turns off, and this is really important for black and white photography, it turns off the color inks, and you're left with just printing the black and gray inks, which is critical for printing black and white stuff without seeing subtle color shifts. Because if you don't do that, if you've been printing at home or even at a lab that doesn't do this, and a lot of labs don't do this, I'll name a great photo. I'll name a couple here. I won't name a couple here, but um, if you are at home printing without doing this kind of mode and turning off the color inks, you will see your black and whites kind of shifting to one color or another. They'll have a bit of a tint to them sometimes, be it a warm tone, a cool tone, a blue-green sort of tone, depending on how your driver is interpolating the data that it's been given, which again, interpolation is a fancy way of making things up. So to not get those color shifts, go into go into advanced black and white mode. Thanks for that point there, Charles. That is an important one based on the things that we're saying. One more question here from Michael Singer. Any suggestions? Excuse me, Mickey Singer. Hey, Mickey, how's it going? Mickey from Santa Cruz, from Coda. Any suggestions for cases where calibrated monitor plus correct ICC paper file still leads to prints being too dark? Yeah, Mike, I may have this may have come before I said what I said before, so I'll just quickly reiterate it again. Long story short is when you're calibrating your monitor, you want to make sure that you have a setting in that software that asks you about brightness values, and you want to get that display down to somewhere around ideally 90 to 100 candelas per square meter. If it doesn't go down that bright, 110 is the way to go. So thanks for that question. Go ahead, Joe.
I'll
Or
say one other thing actually about that too, though, is how are you then viewing the print, I would say as well, in terms of you would also want to think of your like, are you lighting it? Are you having professional lighting, or is it just going to be ambient light coming in? Because that will also definitely affect.
you mean where you're hanging it?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Where
So
you're viewing it, I should say.
yes,
Yeah.
because I know, comparing if you're just looking at your monitor versus a print, but then if the print's, not being properly lit, all of a sudden it typically is going to look a lot darker, which sometimes is a case as well, like where I was just discussing with someone the other day of, it's going to be hung up in just where there is a bit of ambient light, but with there isn't any other light coming in on it, like we actually bumped it up just a little bit more to make it a little bit lighter to then kind of counteract the fact that it's going to be in a bit more shade. Oh,
Yeah, that's a say file X critically. So Joe, I'm so
yep.
glad that you said that because that's a critically important point that I did not mention there. And that is you can do everything that I just said in terms of brightness values on the screen, but if you take it out of the printer and you walk into a closet, your print's going to look dark. I mean, a closet with no light on, duh. So what you're getting back off the print is also um, uh, reflective of the light you're putting on it, right? No pun intended there, but it absolutely is. So if we're calibrating to D65, which is the other recommendation I have in terms of white point to D65, and then you put it in front of a lamp that's um, 2000K, things are going to look different. Or if you're looking at it in a dark space, things are going to look different. So there are actually viewing lights that you can buy nowadays that are specifically for proofing images. We have, what was the name of it again? The one we have? Filix is one that we have here. Graphlight, I think, is the name of another one that is really, these are like desktop lamps that you can turn on, that you can cycle between different color temperatures, and you can set to D65 as your white point. And then you can take that print, and instead of looking at it in the shaded corner of your house, put the print under that. And if you're getting consistency at that point from what you're seeing on the paper to your screen, you're there. But where you're viewing it, such a good point, Joe, makes all the difference in the world, not just with the brightness values, but even the color as well.
Yes. I agree. Was there any other questions, Jason, or should I
Yeah, but
continue?
keep going because they'll never end.
All right, so if I go, I move this thing back out of here, get back into develop. Alrighty, that's so now I wanted to get into just quickly again on sharpening and noise reduction. So for instance, if I bring this was shot or another whale shot early morning. You can see it was in fog, so I had to pull it up. I'd done a bunch of exposure to it, but then you can also see, I mean, there's quite a bit of noise in there. So um, I will say, if you again, if people haven't used it yet, the new noise reduction is pretty phenomenal. This doesn't actually kind of blew my mind. Look at all that color noise in there. If I hold down, I can see originally it's pulled even a bit. Uh, so this is all part of the new enhanced feature in Lightroom. And oftentimes I just kind of keep it around 50%. It seems like it does a really good job of getting rid of color noise. If I go enhance it, there it is up there, loading. But I feel like it's amazing these days. I know people have asked me between Lightroom denoise versus using Topaz. Um, and so I'd like to say that I feel like Topaz it's really easy for it to go kind of beyond what's acceptable, where all of a sudden now it's coming out like plasticky looking. Whereas I feel like Lightroom, like I was showing, it was like 50%. It's it's a good starting point where even really pushing it to kind of do a lot of reduction, it's much less noticeable. It's kind of like smaller, minute corrections, including then even the sharpening. So if I was to go, say, just back to the standard, what, 25%, and then if I wanted to sharpen up, I can go up to like 100 or something like that. Overall, like, that's a pretty big jump, but relatively, you're not seeing as much crazy shift. Whereas if I was to do, even a couple pixels in Topaz, I mean, it'll really start showing off the textures everywhere in the scene quite a bit. And so, but I'm sorry I don't have Topaz actually on my computer, unfortunately. But I think Jason, you've seen this too as well, and we were talking about it of how much Topaz can kind of stretch out an image and start making it look a bit wonky. So that's why I like will try as much as I can to leave stuff in Lightroom until I've done all I can with it. Then, if it still needs help, then finally bring it into an external, some other software to help me.
Yep,
But
got it. And since you're on that subject too, let me elaborate. Very good point, Joe, is that there's a kind of a handful of options nowadays for handling the details before going to print. And if you're printing medium to large size files, they're really important. And we're in that sort of denoising and sharpening phase of our workflows. And let me sidetrack for a second here.
mhm.
Sharpening, especially a couple webinars ago, I without a guess just did a webinar. Um, I forgot the name of it. What was the name of the webinar? Effie, what was the name of that sharpening webinar? What was the name of that sharpening webinar that I did? Do you remember? It had a cool title. I don't remember. Anyway, if you go to bradleyphotographic.com blog, look a couple webinars ago, the one before Jennifer Renwick. I did one on sharpening. Um, the ins and outs. That's right, because there's input and output sharpening to be talked about as well. So I talk about sharpening, and during that conversation, I mentioned we have options like Topaz, AI tools, by the way, that work with process files. However, you can save stuff from Topaz as a DNG now.
Mhm.
DxO Pure Raw 3, the stuff that's in Adobe itself, in Lightroom, the denoise AI. And using the denoise AI in conjunction with the sharpening sliders and algorithms that are there is the easiest and works a lot of the time. We don't really use DxO Pure Raw 3. I would say, do you ever use that anymore, Joe, or you just leave it alone?
Nope, pretty much just leave it alone.
Yeah.
It's
So the lab here, we just either kind of dance between Adobe and Topaz, but find that sticking with Lightroom Classic and working with the denoise AI and then just its own regular old sharpening sliders does the trick most of the time. Would you agree with that or no?
yes, because then also I'd say a lot of it is being able to then do selective edits within sharpening areas as well.
Yeah.
Um, like for instance, actually even on this print, I mean, you can still see like there's still some stuff happening up on that top left. So what I like is that I can, go in and then do, I don't know, say a linear gradient and bring up the noise reduction and maybe, bring up the exposure a little bit. And all of a sudden then you're kind of getting rid of I mean, so you're able to kind of fine tune even more so while keeping overall, the sharpness on your subject and make it look good. So I think it's huge what you can kind of finesse around in Lightroom that I don't have that as much in Topaz or other stuff. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. 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 We got a question here from an anonymous attendee. Please comment on Affinity Photo 2 as a photo editing software. How does it compare to Lightroom? Anonymous attendee, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Quite frankly, I don't know much about, I would say, I don't know anything about Affinity Photo 2. Sorry, being an expert here on the computer and saying I don't know anything, but I can't really comment on it. I don't even know if it's a raw file editor or not. I don't know much about it, but I tell you this, I'll look it up. You got me curious. In fact, I'll see if I can look it up while get the basics on it while we're talking here to get an answer to you before we leave. If I can't, no worries, but I'll see what I can do. But I don't know anything about it. My apologies. Another question from Rich Books. Hey, Rich, how you doing? Color checker is set. Excuse me. Color checker is to set your camera profile as a profile in the develop mode. I think you're saying, do you still need to use Spider to calibrate your monitor? Color checker. Joe, what does he think he means by color checker is set to camera profile? Either way,
Uh,
Rich, regardless of my knowledge or lack thereof on what you're referring to in terms of color checker, if you want consistency from paper to print, everybody needs to calibrate their monitor. So it's unavoidable. So how's that for an answer? Okay.
I'm wondering. I was wondering, Jason, if it's because I know, like, Apple, you can do a calibration check, but like
Yeah,
without
he
spider
says
some.
as a profile in the develop mode. That's what. So I don't know. I don't know. Rich, if you want to clarify that for us, please do. Otherwise, yeah, my answer right now is if you want to get consistency in printing, this applies to everybody. Calibrate.
Is
All right,
there?
floor is back to you, my friend.
Oh, okay. So, as I had mentioned though about Topaz, I will say, and I'll show you before and after. This was kind of crazy to me. Is as I mentioned, I feel like Topaz is much better at stuff when stuff has like big issues, then it does a better job of going in and actually fixing it. So for this one, I mean, if I zoom in on this, that is that is a blurry seal, right? Like I was shooting video, totally missed focus because the seal came up quickly, photographed it. It is not good. So, but this is where like back in the day, I would have just as soon as I got it onto my computer, it would have been delete, format the card, get rid of it, and never want to see this image again. But with the softwares these days, I mean, this was then running it through Topaz Sharpen. I'll go in and compare that to, I mean,
Oh,
it
see if you can put those in compare view because that is a huge difference. And then see if you can collapse that panel on the left to give a little bit more screen real estate. That's a really noticeable difference.
Get out of here, thing. That's what I just. No.
You're in reference mode in the develop
Yeah,
modules.
that's what I'm trying to
Sorry,
get out. Nope, you're good. So there's a
yeah. So yeah, so the one on the left,
that's the topaz. Yeah.
that's that's rendered versus the is topaz versus the one on the right. That is stunning
Yep.
to me. And this is new tech. This is we couldn't do this 6 months ago, right?
So, yep, and this is what I'm saying of like topaz when so like when you actually have like a problem image. There was another one I done for someone recently who had a shot of a bunch of zebras and the zebras were out of focus and she had wanted a 24 by 36 and it was like I remember telling her like there's no way and ran it through topaz and it was not just usable, like it actually looked good. So it's I'd say for people nowadays, like don't even get rid of images yet. You gotta, you know, if it's something you really like, I mean, maybe we can retry the lions fighting shot again.
Well,
Sorry, Jason.
that is mind blowing to me. I mean, when I first saw that, yeah, Rich is chiming back in. We'll get to you in a second, Rich. But when I first saw that, I was just like, ugh. And this is one of the things that I mean, I was talking before about the the ethics of AI and stuff. I
Hmm.
find this to be um, it's kind of on the borderline a little bit for me in the sense that it's taking it's taking even our bad images and making them look amazing so we can come in and have really poor technique to some degree and know that the software, especially the AI stuff, can kind of take care of things.
Hmm.
So it's not so much an ethical thing as I know because it's going to happen to me because now that I know what this technology is going to do, it's going to create a whole bunch of lazy photographers that don't need to take the time that they need to take and hone the technique that they need to hone as precisely as they needed to do prior to the advent of this kind of technology. But now that it exists, I don't have to worry so much about being perfect or dead on or exacting with my camera settings or techniques in the field, whether it be purposeful or accidental. Um, this stuff makes it easy,
And I
really easy. And it makes everybody, and this is the part that pisses me off a little bit, makes everybody, whether they've spent 20 years or 25 years or 30 years on it, like Joe or myself, or 6 months, it levels the playing field. So darn it, damn it, stop it.
I
AI,
mean,
go ahead.
to me, what I think is crazy about it too is then thinking of this in addition to say like your Sony A1 that shoots how many frames a second, and you
Right.
can now capture those, say one of those 20 is like the perfect moment, but it's, accidentally happens to be one that's the slightly out of focus one is, you know,
Yeah. Well, that's a
you can get it back now all of a sudden. It's crazy.
fantastic point. Fantastic point. Joe, got a couple more come in.
Hmm.
Um, Rich Brooks is clarifying. He says, I am saying that if you use Color Checker, which allows you to use your camera profile in the develop module, you still need to use a product like Spider Pro. Okay, absolutely. The answer still applies, Rich. If you are, you got to calibrate your monitor because if you're, especially if you're printing color, as I said, if you're printing black and white, I mean, you still got the luminosity of your screen to worry about, but you can always just set that to, like I said, 90 to 100 candelas per square meter. Um, but yeah, if you're printing anything color, you got to calibrate. You got to calibrate. You got to calibrate because to gain that consistency is an ICC color management workflow, which means you start there by creating an ICC profile for your monitor, but then you have to use ICC profiles for the specific printer you're using and for the specific paper you're using. Like in the lab here, we have a whole 9 different papers, and each one has its own color profile. Better yet, still, we have 2 different Epson printers, which are in theory the same thing in the sense that we have a P10,000 and a P20,000. They're both 11 ink aqueous ink printers, same technology in each one, but they're still going to print slightly differently. So we have to have custom profiles for the 10,000 and for the 20,000 for each of those papers. That's the trick to getting consistency, but all starts with making sure that your display is adhering to an ICC profile. That's step one. Can't get around it. Another question from Oliver. Color checker from X-Rite uses a panel of color patches to create a new custom color profile for your camera. You load the profile into Lightroom Camera Raw. It calibrates, quote unquote, your camera to a specific lighting condition. So yes, thanks, Oliver. In addition to calibrating your monitor, you can calibrate printers, you can calibrate papers, you can calibrate cameras, you can calibrate everything along your device workflow chain. I don't recommend necessarily that you need to calibrate your camera for gaining consistency. Calibrating a camera is good if you want color accuracy with various lighting conditions. One example would be needing to having a shoot where you're critically needing to maintain color accuracy. I use this as an example a lot. If I'm a commercial photographer doing a shoot for Revlon, and I've laid out on the table 50 different shades of their lipstick line, and I want to make sure that those colors are dead on. I cannot have any variation of those colors for that client when I go to print. So I need to make sure that to be totally accurate, that I'm calibrating my camera. I'm calibrating really everything along my device workflow chain to make sure that those colors are exactly as people see them in real life. So thanks for that, Oliver.
One other thing, actually, with you mentioning calibration for all these different things, one thing we haven't mentioned yet is also just to like, especially if you're editing, for like for me, for if I'm editing 2 hours at a time, I actually will have to make sure that I get up and kind of like recalibrate my own eyes because, over time your own even just eyes color shift, and there might be stuff I'm editing and all of a sudden, I'm like, I need to take a break. Then I come back and I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? So
Yep, that happens all the time to me. All the times to me. And then since you said that, one of the other things that can shift that is change in ambient light in the room throughout the day.
yep.
So if you're in a room with a lot of windows and you see, and there's, as this, there's the sun coming in through the morning versus the afternoon for the evening, you're going to experience the tones and contrast on your display differently with each phase of the day. So that's why one of the things that is often told to those developing for print in a home studio is do the best you can to have some sort of consistency of ambient light there, so you don't have that shift throughout a day, which changes our perception of what we see on our screen. So
That just reminds me also of Joshua Tree when we used to shoot too, of think you got a shot perfectly and then you go back and download it and then the next morning you look at it and you're like, wow, I was 4 stops underexposed if you're not looking at your histogram. Good times.
So I'm curious, you might not have an example here, but I mentioned something before. Did you happen to bring in an example of an image that shows some chromatic aberration?
Uh, Not off the top, but I can probably quickly find something if you want.
Yeah, let me
Just to
talk
see.
about it to see if you have one live, but and whoops, I'm getting something ready for print. It's an important thing to look at. Um, Chromatic aberration, simply what it is, and happens with more I would say lesser grade lenses as opposed to higher grade lenses, but it can happen for a handful of reasons. Really, light direction can take a role in it as well. But really, what chromatic aberration is, as the colors of different frequencies are traveling through the lens onto your sensor plane, they will resolve or focus at slightly different areas as they are
Mm.
different frequencies. And lenses on the edges of the lenses might not have the ability to resolve colors at different frequencies as precisely as like the center of a lens or a high quality lens, et cetera. So anyway, the end result of the byproduct of that is if you find an image that has chromatic aberration, it's like, and sometimes you really got to zoom in a lot to find it. 400%, 800%, even more to see it. But you'll see the edges of a detail with a yellow halo, a magenta halo, some kind of a color halo there. that shows up when you make a big print. If I'm making a 12 by 18, no problem. 16 by 20, maybe, probably no problem. But as you get into the medium to large size print range, that stuff is going to start to show up and it's going to be noticeable. So zooming in really, see if Joe can actually find one.
Let's see.
Nowhere.
I mean, that might be
There's a
usable.
little bit of one there.
Yeah.
Not, not the best.
But just to get an idea, I mean, the nice thing is it's so easy nowadays to get rid of it too. So,
That's the important part. So to get rid
yep.
of it, it doesn't take a lot of technique. There's a button there that's Joe is showing you on the right-hand panel. The My screen is being blocked. I already forgot the lens correction panel. All you do is click it,
Yep.
and then that color halo goes away. On rare occasions, and this is usually a result of flare in addition to a bad lens, there's a chromatic fringe that persists even if you remove chromatic aberration. And in those cases, you can play with that more in a couple of different ways. I don't have enough time to go into it, but one way is to do a localized correction and then do a mask over that area where that halo exists, and then find the defringe slider and just turn it all the way down. Okay. That's one way to do it. And then another way to do it, I'll say quickly, is Joe's hovering over it right now. There's a fringe color selector. So you can just simply click on it and then play with those sliders that are underneath that to fix any persistent chromatic aberration or chromatic fringing that might be happening. So anyway, Joe, you don't have any more examples. Am I correct in saying that?
I mean, I could try going
Don't worry.
through,
No,
but
no, it's okay. I'm just wondering if you had anything on deck, or we're already kind of way over time here.
oh yeah. Nope. As of right
Well,
now,
if there,
nothing on deck.
got it. If there's any last minute questions, you guys chime in. You got the last couple minutes here to possibly do it. But as we're wrapping up, Joe, we're done. Get to work.
All right.
Go get
See you
on
in a
your
bit.
start. No, just kidding. But no, thanks for doing this today. Thanks for sharing your insights today and for being here. Much appreciated. Thank you for everybody wherever you are. I noticed in the Q&A we have people from kind of all over today. Thanks for attending. Again, we will have the recorded version of this at bradleyphotographic.com. Um, at bradleyphotographic.com in the blog section. We will send an email out for it in the next few days once it's up. I'm going to include an email in that's going to have the article, which is Modern Printmaking. And it's a 4-part article series that I wrote. I'm going to bring this up again for Outdoor Photographer magazine back in the day. And we'll reinforce a lot of the concepts that we had here today. So check that out. And then one more thing I'd like to highlight at bradleyphotographic.com in blog is, again, a couple webinars ago, I did a webinar called The Ins and Outs of Sharpening. And that's going to go into much more depth about how to sharpen an image. Joe touched on it here today because it's in a critical detail for making sure that your images or the details of your images are where you need them to be, and how to do that properly, how to understand the difference between input sharpening and output sharpening. All that stuff is in that webinar, so go check them out. Anything else, reach out to us at our gallery here. Otherwise, we will see you one of the Tuesdays of next month, and that email will be coming out soon on who the guest is. So thanks all. And wait, before I go, Jason, I'm having a problem understanding the word XX per square meter. I got it. Leonard, the word is candelas per square meter, or C/M to the 2. It refers to the brightness value. And if your calibrating system is set to ask you to set the brightness value of your display, you will set it to, again, 90 to 100 candelas per square meter. Okay. Um, so Mary D says, thanks, Jason and Joe. Lots of thank yous. Let me see if we have any more questions. Once again, thanks. Well, good. Lots of thank yous. Everybody, thanks for attending. You are absolutely welcome, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, Joe. See you soon.
See it. See it work soon though. Bye.
Bye.